Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today our topic is about disseminated intravascular coagulation, also known as DIC. DIC, it is defined as widespread inappropriate intravascular deposition of fibrin with the consumption of coagulation factors and platelets, and it occurs as a consequence of many disorders that release procoagulant material into the circulation or cause widespread endothelial damage or platelet aggregation. It is an acute, subacute, or chronic thrombohemorrhagic disorder characterized by the excessive activation of coagulation and the formation of thrombi in the microvasculature of the body. Microvasculature means the capillaries and arterioles. Sometimes the coagulopathy is localized to a specific organ or tissue. As a consequence of thrombotic diathesis, there is consumption of platelets, fibrin, and coagulation factor, and secondarily activation of fibrinolysis. So what happens in a DIC is that there is inappropriate activation of coagulation cascade, which lead to deposition of fibrin or clot formation in the circulation. As a result of widespread coagulation, the platelets and other coagulation factor they are utilized, and as a result there is a bleeding tendency. So this is a thrombohemorrhagic disorder. That's why it is called a thrombohemorrhagic disorder. At the outset, it must be emphasized that DIC it is not a primary disease. It is a coagulopathy that occurs in the course of variety of clinical conditions. In discussing the general mechanism underlying DIC, it is useful to briefly review the normal process of blood coagulation and clot removal. So first is coagulation cascade. Clotting in vivo is thought to be initiated by the exposure of tissue factor, which is a coagulation factor 3. It combines with the factor 7 to activate both the factor 10 directly and to activate factor 9. Activation of factor 10 leads to generation of thrombin, which is a central player in the clotting. At site where the endothelium is disrupted, thrombin converts fibrinogen to fibrin, feedbacks to activate factor 9, 8 and 5, which stimulate the fibrin and also stimulates the fibrin cross linking, inhibit fibrinolysis and activate platelets, all of which augment the formation of a stable clot. This is a normal phenomena. And to prevent runaway clotting, this process must sharply be limited to the site of tissue injury only. This is a pictorial manifestation. As a result of endothelial damage or vascular damage, the tissue factor is released, which will activate factor 7. The factor 7 will activate both factor 9 and factor 10. Factor 10 will activate thrombin into will activate prothrombin into thrombin, which is the activated form. It will in turn activate fibrinogen to fibrin. Fibrin along with the factor 13 they combine to form a stable fibrin clot. Now once a clot is formed, then there is a mechanism for its removal too. Once the thrombin it enters into the blood circulation and it encounters uninjured vessel, it is converted to an anticoagulant through binding to a thrombomodulin, which is a protein found on the surface of endothelial cells. This complex of thrombin and thrombomodulin it activates protein C, which is an important inhibitor of factor 5 and factor 8. Other activated coagulation factors are removed also from the circulation by the liver, because the blood also contains several potent fibrinolytic factors such as plasmin. These and additional checks and balance they normally ensure that just enough clotting occur at the right place and right time. So the two major anticoagulants are or fibrinolytic agents are plasmin and protein C. This is a pathway showing fibrinolytic system. This is endothelial cells and the thrombin and thrombomodulin, they will activate the protein C, and protein C will further inactivate factor 5 and factor 8. Etiological causes, DIC is mostly due to be associated with obstetric complications, procoagulant derived from the placenta, dead retained fetus, or amniotic fluid may enter the circulation, and this is the obstetric complication they are the major causative agent of DIC. Second is the malignant neoplasm. Malignant neoplasm में है acute promyelocytic leukemia and adenocarcinoma of the lung, pancreas, colon and stomach. They are most frequently associated with DIC. In these leukemias or the or other cancers, mucus is released from these from such masses, which will act as a procoagulant. Third is a sepsis. In sepsis, two factors they are important. One is endotoxin and the antigen antibody mediate complexes. The endotoxin will inhibit the thrombomodulin activity directly or indirectly by stimulating immune cells to make tissue necrosis factor, and it can also activate factor 12. And the antigen antibody complex will activate the classic complement pathway. Major trauma, the major trigger is the release of procoagulants such as tissue factor, and the last one is hypoxia, acidosis and shock, which often coexist in a very ill patient. They can also cause widespread endothelial injury, and supervening infection can complicate the problems further. So as we have discussed the normal formation of clot and their removal, we can easily say that the DIC, it can result when there is a pathological or excessive activation of coagulation and there is a impairment of clot inhibiting mechanism. The second or this phenomena is very rarely seen, so it is important for us to discuss the excessive or pathological activation coagulation here. Two major mechanisms they trigger DIC. One is the first one is the release of tissue factor or other poorly characterized procoagulants into the circulation and the widespread injury to the endothelial cells. Procoagulants such as tissue factor, they can be derived from variety of sources. These are placenta in obstetric complications, tissue injury injured by trauma or burns, and the mucus released from the certain adenocarcinoma. They act as a procoagulants by directly activating factor 10. Now, how a endothelial injury can initiate DIC? There are several ways. The first one is the injuries that cause endothelial cell necrosis. They expose the subendothelial matrix. This subendothelial matrix is an excellent activator of platelets and coagulation pathway. However, even small endothelial injuries, they can also start a procoagulant activity. One mediator of endothelial injury is TNF, which is implicated in DIC with occurring with sepsis. TNF induces endothelial cells to express tissue factor on their cell surfaces to decrease the expression of thrombomodulin and upregulate the expression of adhesion molecules on endothelial cells. Widespread endothelial injury, they may also be produced by deposition of antigen antibody complexes, such as seen in systemic lupus erythematosus, temperature extremes in heat stroke or burns, or microorganism infections such as meningococci and rickettsia. The possible consequences of DIC, they are twofold: widespread deposition of fibrin within the microcirculation. These lead to the ischemia of the more severely affected or more vulnerable organs, and a microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, which result from the fragmentation of red cells as squeezed through the narrowed microvasculature. Once the clots they are formed, there is a consumption of platelets and clotting factor, and the activation of plasminogen, which leading to hemorrhagic diathesis. Plasmin not only cleaves fibrin but also digests factor 5 and 8, thereby reducing their concentration further. In addition, fibrin degradation product resulting from fibrinolysis inhibit platelet aggregation, fibrin polymerization, and thrombin. Clinical features. So if the patient is having a DIC, he will the onset in such patients will be fulminant, as in the endotoxic shock or amniotic fluid embolism, or it can be slow and chronic, as in cases of carcinomatosis or retention of dead fetus. Overall, about 50% of the affected are obstetric patients having complications of pregnancy. In this setting, the disorder tend to be reversible with the delivery of fetus. About 33% of the affected patients they have carcinomatosis. The remaining cases are associated with the various entities we have discussed previously. DIC can present with the signs and symptoms relating to tissue hypoxia and infarction caused by myriad microthrombi, with hemorrhage caused by the depletion of factors required for hemostasis and the activation of fibrinolytic mechanisms, or both. So the sign and symptoms seen in the DIC, they can be related to either thrombi or hemorrhage, or both. It is almost impossible to detail all the potential clinical presentation, but a few common pattern are worthy of description. They are microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, dyspnea, cyanosis, respiratory failure, convulsions and coma, oliguria and acute renal failure, and sudden or progressive circulatory failure and shock. In general, acute DIC associated with obstetric complications or major trauma, for example, is dominant by a bleeding diathesis, whereas chronic DIC, such as occur in cancer patients, they tend to present with thrombotic complications. Lab diagnosis. In the patients of DIC, the following test will be abnormal: the platelet count will be low, fibrinogen concentration is low, thrombin time is prolonged, high level of fibrin degradation products such as D dimers are found in serum and urine. The PT and APTT are prolonged in acute syndromes. Sometimes there is a compensation by the liver, and few of the coagulation tests they will be normal, and the blood fill examination will show hemolytic anemia. The red cell will show prominent fragmentation because of damage caused when they passing through fibrin strands in small vessels. Prognosis. The prognosis is highly variable and largely dependent on the underlying disorder. The only definitive treatment is to remove or treat the inciting cause. The management requires meticulous maneuvering by stabilizing between the thrombosis and bleeding diathesis. Administration of anticoagulants or procoagulants has been advocated in specific settings, but there is always a controversy regarding its treatment. This slide is we have just read and is repeated mistakenly. Thank you.